Four Spheres of Knowledge Creation. The Causal Principles by René Holmbjerg Bøtker. Chapter 16. Abstract and Concrete Knowledge. The abstract concrete taxonomy concerns the set in which an object is situated. This taxonomy is a cornerstone of the transcendental idealism, namely, because the impetus of this philosophical paradigm was to understand the abstract noumenal nature of the world. Essentially, the transcendental idealists were attempting to reveal the infinite set as an analog phenomenal representation of the noumenal world. Therefore, both Schopenhauer and Hegel described in detail the possibilities of abstract knowledge. The arguments were similar, but with a central difference. Schopenhauer was seeking the thing in itself, whereas Hegel was seeking the thing for itself. While the thing was essentially the same, the connotations and methodologies for understanding the noumenal world were very different. An infinite set, in both Hegel and Schopenhauer's perspective, is a set where all possible interactions are possible, where no possibility of interaction is particular, i.e., a set of infinitesimal differentiation. A set of infinitesimal differentiation can be perceived as twofold, either as an entity differentiated until all possible interactions in the pre-established harmony has been actualized, or as an entity where nothing has been actualized, leaving the infinite set as a whole, and the object as a potential, where all objects in the set exists as indivisible points, and therefore leaving objects in the set indistinguishable from each other. Both reveals the abstract reality. It reveals the delineation of the whole. Schopenhauer argued that the only object which is not differentiated is the whole, and the object in itself exists as a representation of this whole. The object in itself is an object with the potential of interacting with all other objects, because the property of the object is the same indistinguishable property as the property of other objects. For Schopenhauer, the infinite set comes into existence as the reality before any actualization and in extension of that differentiation, as an undifferentiated immaterial entity that results in an indistinguishable whole. Hegel's perspective of an infinite set is related to the perspective of the object for itself as it exists as an entity with all possible representations. In this sense, it would be an object which exists as a phenomenal representation of the noumenal potential object after undergoing actualization processes with all other objects. An infinite temporal set is an infinite number of representations of an object, which reveals any which way the object can be delineated. Thus, when any possible momentary spatial delineation is actualized, the object will be delineated through its shared boundaries with any other object. The object for itself emerges as a result of an infinite differentiation. What is left is the object for itself. Schopenhauer wanted to understand all possible potential representations of an object. Hegel wanted to understand all possible actualized representations of an object. The compatibility of these two seemingly incompatible views lies in the dimension of which the object exists. Schopenhauer did not find the possibility of an infinite temporal set feasible. Hegel did not find the possibility of an infinite spatial set feasible. Although Schopenhauer and Hegel's frameworks is counter-arguing each other, it is quite apparent that in both cases the abstract nature of an object is dependent on the existence of an infinite set. Spatial and temporal sets. A set is composed of actualized objects. The shared boundaries within the set structures the possibilities for actualization of objects. A spatial set is composed of multiple actualized objects, which represents the objects positioned relative to other objects. As such, the spatial set represents the delineation of the different objects, which exists in the set. A temporal set is constituted by multiple actualized representations of a single potential object, which represents an object positioned among other representations of itself. The temporal set is composed of different actualized representations of the same potential object. The difference between a spatial and temporal set consists of the potential objects, which is represented in the set. The potential objects represented in a spatial set consists of different potential objects, which exist phenomenally as a representation of the boundaries that the pre-established harmony enables. The potential objects represented in a temporal set consists of different representations of one potential object, which is phenomenally represented as a representation of the boundaries that a potential object can form. Spatial and temporal sets are therefore phenomenally delineated structures of boundaries as representations of two noumenal, infinite, indistinguishable entities. Finite sets. Concrete knowledge concerns knowledge which exists in a finite set. A finite set represents a subset of the pre-established harmony, where the delineation of actualized objects in the set represents a set of possible interactions. The finite set contains only the possible boundaries, which objects are already engaging in amongst themselves in the set. This set of possible interactions is a particular harmony, where only the objects in the set have a potential representation. The particular structures of boundaries represent the only possibilities of representation in a set. The set is closed to new interactions and can only incorporate new objects if they can be actualized as a continuation of the particular harmony. Infinite sets. Abstract knowledge concerns knowledge which exists in an infinite set. The delineation of actualized objects in a set represents a set of possible interactions. As such, the delineation, which exists in an infinite set, is a representation of the pre-established harmony. An infinite set represents a set which is analog to the pre-established harmony. The pre-established harmony represents all possible boundaries between potential objects. An infinite set is a set where all possible phenomenal representations of potential objects exists. The set is open to all possible interactions and can incorporate radically new objects, as they are not bound to be actualized as a continuation of the particular harmony.